What are the biggest lies you were never meant to find out about acid reflux? First is that it's due to too little acid. You're told to just eat bread, it'll soak up the acid. It's all about acidic foods. That's, just cut those from your diet and you'll be totally fine. PPIs will cure your acid reflux. That's a big one. We'll come back to that. Lying down causes it, so just sleep sitting up. It's all about your diet, all about what you eat, and there's no other root cause. And finally, reflux is just an inconvenience. It's nothing serious. So all of those are the lies. Let's go into the truth. So the first one is a big one, and it seems very counterintuitive. When you have acid reflux and you're suffering with heartburn, you're like, listen, it's too much acid, I can tell. When in fact, you are feeling the burning and all of that is real, but especially if you're over the age of 40 or you're under a lot of stress, you can have that burning sensation, but it's actually due to too little acid. Now, I'm not saying that's true for everyone, but ultimately it's never about too much. It's about the fact that the stomach, which is a bag of acid, is being compressed inappropriately, and that's forcing its contents up the esophagus, where you feel it in your throat and in the area of your heart. But it's not because you have too much acid, it's because the poor little stomach is being squeezed, okay? So it's either not enough, which is common, or the stomach is being squeezed inappropriately. It's basically never because of too much acid. So that's a complete lie. Okay, so next, eat bread to soak up the acid. Temporarily, that might make you feel a little bit better, but ultimately there's a lot of people who have gluten sensitivity, and so they eat bread and they get more inflamed. It slows the motility or the motion in the stomach. That creates a lot of pressure, and that aggravates acid reflux and hiatal hernia. Also, refined carbohydrates like bread, especially in this country, tend to spike insulin, and so now you worsen blood sugar swings, and that also reduces gut motility. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today has to do with the motion through the gut, and when things slow down, pressure builds up, and there's your poor stomach getting pushed up, creating acid reflux and hiatal hernia. And I'm going to say acid reflux and hiatal hernia not in one breath, but the reason I put them together is that they correlate about 70 to 100% of the time. This is per research. So I put them together because they do tend to occur together. Okay, next, and maybe the biggest one, is being told your antacid, your omeprazole, pantoprazole, they all end in azole, is going to cure your acid reflux. And people who are given it just go, oh, this is great, this is the drug that's curing it. I love this drug. Now, for some people, they do feel better because it's decreasing the stomach acid, but over time, extremely dangerous and life-threatening side effects associated with these medications, which, by the way, are only approved for use for 2 weeks at a time. Yet, I frequently meet people who have been on them, not just months and years, but decades. So once you get past the 1 to 3 year mark, you're in the realm of creating nutritional deficiencies, infections. You have increased incidence of osteoporosis or brittle bones, increased risk of dementia, increased risk of stomach cancer, increased risk of heart attack, and actually the list goes on. I've done several videos about this, but they don't only cure the problem, they create new problems. So they are not the friends you think they are. And if you've used them temporarily, that's fine. But we want to get to the root cause of why. Remember, it might be too little acid. So of course, being on an acid suppressant drug is just going to make it worse. Or it's not due to too much acid, it's due to that pressure on the stomach. And the PPI is not going to address any of that. Okay, then you're told to avoid all acid foods. And they can be aggravating, it's true, but when you fall into the category of being over the age of 40, when we start to produce less acid in our stomach, and your symptoms might be due to too little acid, a little acidic food like apple cider vinegar can go a long way in improving your symptoms, actually. So this fear of acidic foods is not founded either. Okay. Lying down causes it. Now, that's not what causes it. Lying down can aggravate it, but it's really a mechanism that has more to do with the mechanics of how your body works. So we have what's called sphincters or valves, and you've got two in your esophagus, is the tube that connects your mouth down to your stomach. So you've got two of them, and what they do is they sense that food or drink is coming, and they open up and then they close back down. And as they close, there's a downward pressure. Why? Because the only direction that food and drink is supposed to travel in is top down. We've all had the unfortunate moment of vomiting, and that's bottom up, and it's pretty uncomfortable. It is very acidic, and it's because something is wrong. It is not normal to do that. So these valves open and then close with a downward pressure to keep things moving top down. And so what's really happening with acid reflux and hiatal hernia is that the sphincters, especially the lower one, but the upper one can be involved as well, have gotten weakened, and they're not creating that nice downward pressure, and things can come up too easily. The diaphragm itself, which is just below the lower sphincter in the esophagus, so it's the diaphragm, that dome-shaped muscle organ, and then the esophagus passes through an opening in the diaphragm, and then the lower sphincter is right there, and then immediately there's your stomach, okay? So that's the order of things. And the diaphragm itself acts as a sphincter to keep things down. So your body mechanically has a lot of these sphincters, about 10 to 15 total, that are designed to just keep things moving along in the right direction. So yes, lying down can aggravate acid reflux, but it's not the cause of it at all. And you should definitely be able to regain the function of the sphincters, decrease the inflammation in your abdomen and the increased pressure there, such that you can do what you're supposed to do when you sleep, which is lie flat, and it's not going to aggravate you. Okay, then we're told it's all about the diet. Like, that's the only thing that's causing it. And certainly trigger foods, as we call them, or food sensitivities, do tend to be a component part, but it's not the only thing. We've talked about the mechanics of the sphincters. There's also the vagus nerve, which plays into the sphincters. It also plays into how the diaphragm functions, and really how your heart and your esophagus and your stomach and all of the digestive organs function. The vagus nerve goes to all of those areas. It's very pervasive. And so normalizing the tone, as it's called, of the vagus nerve, also getting the bacteria in your colon balanced. Dysbiosis is the name for when it's imbalanced, and that is creating increased pressure. Again, the poor stomach has no choice but to be forced up. So it's not just about food. Yes, food is a component, but that's not all of it by any means. And lastly, it's like, oh, you've got some acid reflux, take some Tums or take the omeprazole, no big deal. It is a big deal, because as it goes on longer and longer, you can get what's called strictures in your esophagus, because the acid has created so much irritation that you start getting scar tissue there. And it's not easy to handle it at that point. Everything feels it's hard to swallow, things are stuck. Sometimes you regurgitate food. We've definitely met patients who ultimately have done very well, but come to us with, I just kind of puree everything. I can't really, chew solid food. Even chewing it well is not enough. And it can be a pretty miserable experience. Then there's something called Barrett's esophagus. And that's when actually the cells in the esophagus start to change, and they become precancerous or ultimately cancerous. And esophageal cancer is a horrible thing. So definitely want to avoid that. Then there's something called silent reflux, which is also called LPR, and that's where the effects of the acid, also it can be bile from the gallbladder, is felt more in this upper area. So you have hoarseness, you feel like something's stuck in your throat. The symptoms are all up here versus lower in the abdomen. And then there's also tooth erosion. So the acid comes up and it starts eroding your teeth, so now you have a big dental issue. And also you can aspirate acid or bile. So it can get into your lungs and you start getting asthma-like symptoms. Not to mention the fact that all of the symptoms, when you have acid reflux, the sort of trickle-down effect of creating just shortness of breath, heart palpitations, anxiety and panic attacks. So it becomes a very systemic problem having acid reflux. So there's a lot of lies or myths, to say it more kindly, associated with this. And I wanted to present this to you today to show you what the options are, and the fact that it's untrue, well, all the things that I mentioned, but most especially that you can't enjoy good food anymore, you can't eat the way you used to, and that PPIs are the answer, because they're not. So there's a lot that can be done naturally, and we're happy to assist, but this is a $1 billion per year drug. That's just here in the US. We represent 40% of the global market, even though we certainly don't represent 40% of the world or globe. But worldwide, the global income from this drug is over $3 billion per year. So that's certainly, perpetuated that, this is the best you can do for yourself, and kind of the only thing you can do for yourself, other than if it's hiatal hernia, then you hear about surgery, which is another myth in a lot of cases. So we're going to go over those myths a little bit later, but I hope you found this informative. That's what my channel is all about. Consider, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, comment. Love to listen to your comments. I pretty much answer all of them. And consider subscribing to the channel. We're trying to increase our subscribers so that more people can avail themselves of this type of information. So I'll talk to you soon.